Terence, where are you now?
I'm in Tabacon Cigar Lounge in Doral, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to do it at the office, but then in the office upstairs, there's no ventilation, so you can't really smoke up there. And then to sit out in the warehouse is like, you're sweating like a pig. So this is a nice place. I could get a nice drink while I do this and have a nice cigar,
There you go. I lived in the Kendall area for 4 years, south part of Miami.
Yeah. No, of course. By the Dadeland Mall and everything?
Yeah.
And here we are. Welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday evening, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday morning, depending on where you're joining us from. Thanks, everybody, for sharing a little bit of your precious time with us here at the Lightemup Lounge for another wonderful conversation with a true gentleman of the cigar industry, an extremely knowledgeable man when it comes to tobacco, cigars, and we want to talk about all of that and answer all your questions that you might have. For everybody joining us over on the Facebook live stream, make yourselves heard in the comments, please. I'm always checking the stream so I can forward your questions to Terence, and for you guys here at the lounge, please make yourselves heard as usual. It's good to have you all. And without further ado, Terence Reilly from Aganorsa Leaf. What a pleasure and what a privilege to have you here with us at the lounge. We hosted Eduardo before, but I'm very glad, and I was very much looking forward to hosting a show with you. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks for being here with us.
Oh, thank you so much. What an introduction. I got to come here more often. I feel like $1 million now.
We're always here to cheer you up, so please feel free to pop in.
Oh, I will.
Well, it's been quite a while, and it's been quite a journey for us, Terence. We started Lightemup in the early days of the pandemic, and 4 years later, here we are, still running, still rocking and rolling, but happy and delighted to have met so many wonderful people, have met so many great introductions, and enjoy the company here at the lounge. So let's get right in there. Terence, you have a quite long and storied history in the cigar industry, even though you're such a young gentleman, but you are family to Manolo Quesada, one of the icons of the Dominican cigar scene. You started with your first experience in the premium cigar industry at Quesada Cigars, and you were pretty much at the helm and spearheading a lot of the rebranding and the changes and the recent evolution of Aganorsa Leaf. But tell us a little bit about those early days of Terence Reilly and how you grew up with tobacco and what your first impressions and experiences in the world of tobacco were.
So Terence Reilly is about a gringo name as you could possibly have. So there's always kind of a question mark when it comes to, how are you related to Manolo Quesada? And so what it is, my father, his father's an Irishman from Chicago, but after World War II, he was in the OSS, which was the precursor to the CIA, and he was in Cuba for various reasons, and he spoke Spanish very fluently. And he met my grandmother down there, who is a Quesada, and they got married. And after everybody left Cuba, my father, he grew up in Miami, but the rest of the family relocated to Dominican Republic for the most part, or Spain. But on the tobacco side, they went to Dominican Republic, and so that's kind of where the connection lies. Is my father and Manuel are first cousins. I call Manuel my uncle because our ages and stations in life are a little different. It sounds like a little incestuous to say cousin or something like that. He's a bit older than me and a lot more experienced. So but I spent a lot of my early time in this business working for him. When I was young, I went down and spent the summer in the factory, honestly because I had family in Dominican Republic and I wanted to go spend time down there. But I would see, I learned about the cigar business working in the factory, and then on Sundays we'd go over his house and have cigars, and everyone would be having cigars and we'd be playing, eating and whatever. And I was the only one not smoking a cigar, and I was pretty young at the time, and they said, well, why don't you have a cigar with us? And so I said, okay, sure. And so then I started doing that, and just that's the two aspects about the business that are special. One is the process of making cigars is so difficult, it takes so much effort to create a cigar. And then also the camaraderie and the relationships that you develop through smoking cigars. And so that was really what attracted me to the business. And I ended up going to work for him eventually and spent almost a decade working for him. And then I came over to Aganorsa, and I've been here almost 6 years now. So time flies.
How was that switch for you? I mean, I know everybody's operation is different. Everybody has his or her way of doing things, treating things. And it's not always easy to make that change, I can assume, especially in companies that are so much all hands on deck, family businesses, and run with such a unique philosophy and way of doing things, like in the premium cigar industry.
Yeah, so there's certainly differences between one, country of origin. There's obviously differences, but at the end of the day, it's also Eduardo is an old school Cuban guy. My uncle is an old school Cuban guy, and those guys share a lot of similarities in terms of their attitude towards work, in terms of their attitude towards cigars, in terms of business and these things. And so in that sense, it was a bit of an easy transition because I came from a family business and I came to another family business. So it was a pretty smooth transition in that sense. And then it was more kind of learning what's special about Aganorsa. For any company, they try to stick out in a particular way, and you try to figure out what the strengths are and really highlight those. And so obviously they're different for different companies. And so it was more on the side of kind of focusing the company rather than just the general process of doing business or things. That was in a lot of ways very similar, quite frankly. It was more on the side of okay, this is a different company, and what's special about this company and what sets it apart from everybody else.
Speaking of those unique traits of Aganorsa Leaf and the things that got you excited and convinced you to make that change, join the Aganorsa Leaf team and give it your all there. What was it that you saw there? And that could be both the challenges, I guess, and the things that you wanted to change, but also the future and the trajectory, the path ahead, the things you wanted to create in order to take Aganorsa Leaf, which was Quesada Fernandez still back then, I believe, sure. Right?
Yeah.
Take that to the next level and create what later became Aganorsa Leaf.
That's a great question. So if you had asked me who I would have ended up with after I left Quesada, I would have never have said them. It was by chance that I knew somebody that worked for Aganorsa, and this gentleman, his name is Robert Morris. He another CIA connection. He used to be a CIA guy as well, and he went to high school with Eduardo, and so he was helping rep Eduardo in the Virginia, Carolina area. And he knew me from Quesada. He'd repped us at Quesada as well. He was it's called a broker who carry various lines and things. And so he said, Terence, I think they could really use somebody in Quesada Fernandez at the time, like you. Would you be willing to take a meeting? And really out of respect, I said, sure, I'll listen to anybody, why not? But what I learned about the company is again, it's one of the largest growers of tobacco in Nicaragua. We sell tobacco over the years to Padron, we sell tobacco to Fuente, we sell tobacco to Drew Estate, we sell tobacco to all these incredible companies. We make cigars for companies like Illusion, Foundation, Warped, Viaje, and these are some of the most popular companies in the business. A lot of cachet, a lot of prestige, and then our own brands had good ratings and things, but they just really weren't well known. And there was not ever an effort really to promote that. The branding was very confusing. There's a lot of Casas, there's a lot of Fernandezes, and Fernandez is like Smith with Latinos, and so it was an interesting challenge because they had everything there, and they just weren't. People didn't know it, and so I felt I could help with that. When you go to a company, you can only change so much, and so if you have an issue that you can't control. Like I can't be in the factory every day making sure that they make the cigars right, or I can't be in the fields making sure they're growing properly. I can't do a lot of things, but I can help in this particular area, and that was the area it seemed that they were lacking in. And also at the time, you said I was young before. I appreciate that. I'm 42 now, and I was, I guess, in my mid 30s at the time, and it was an opportunity to really kind of, be quarterback and spearhead an operation and take something that has a lot of potential and help grow it. And I don't know if in 5 or 10 years that would be something I would want to do. I might want something that's not as challenging necessarily. And so between those factors, that was really what drove me to the company. And to be honest with you, I mean, I like to underpromise and overdeliver. I don't want to say anything I can't ever do. But I mean, we hit goals in literally months that I was saying would take years, and it was just like a piece was missing. They did so many things well, and then I was able to really add a piece that wasn't there, and it's been a hugely rewarding part of my career. I'll be honest with you. It's great to see how the brand has grown and the recognition has grown, even in Europe where people coming up. We just started in Europe, and people coming up and say, "Oh, Aganorsa, I've seen the videos. I've heard so much. I'm so glad you're here now." So it's been a rewarding process.
It's lovely to hear. Do you think in general that that's an issue or a characteristic that you would see with some of the companies that are more heavily involved with the growing side of things or the manufacturing side, that they struggle to push their own brands forward? I mean, Plasencia, I think, is a great example of where they also in the recent years focused more on putting their own name more prominently onto cigars and out to the world, whereas they've been working behind the scenes of the industry for so many people and so many different brands most successfully. But it's a different animal if you want to really create that brand equity and that brand awareness and recognition for yourself, right?
No, absolutely. And Plasencia, by the way, should do a Harvard case study. They've done an incredible job of really building their awareness and developing their brand. It's been incredible. And Nestor Jr. is incredible. His brothers, his father, they have an incredible team over there. And so they're a great case study. Yeah, it's very difficult. Most people aren't good at everything. And the better you are at one thing, sometimes you think you're better at the other stuff too. And usually the opposite is true. And so you really have to take the mentality of, okay, what am I good at? And then staying in that lane. And then for the stuff you're not as good at, find people who are, and have the kind of humility to say, okay, this isn't what I do well. I need somebody that can do it. I need to give them the control and the ability to really to handle this aspect of the business. And Eduardo was very good about that. Like when I met with him, I said, listen, you want to do everything the same way you've been doing it and just have me here, that's going to waste everybody's time. You're going to be very unhappy, and it's not going to work. You got to really let me take control of these particular areas, obviously with your consent and everything, but like you have to kind of have some faith in me to do this. And he did that. And I've never really had any issues on anything meaningful where I felt very strongly about implementing. He's always had that faith in me, and I think that's important. You can't control everything, and to be honest with you, I remind myself every day I'm not good at all in most things. I mean, like there's really, if you wanted me to roll cigars, if you wanted me to manufacture cigars, you want me to grow tobacco, you wanted me to be a logistics guy, I mean, it would be a total disaster. And so you need to find people that can do that for you and give them, have trust and have confidence in their abilities and let them do their thing.
One thing that, funnily enough, I just thought about this as well. You can have all the strategy in the world, right? And then reality kicks in and sure, life kicks in. I mean, there's this old saying that life is what happens to you whilst you make other plans, and the same is probably true for business. How much of what you had in mind when joining Casa Fernandez, later Aganorsa Leaf, was like a plan, a strategy that you had firmly in place, and how much of that was adjusting and adapting whilst you go, taking the inputs, the feedback, and tweaking it whilst you make that journey?
Again, another great question. So I would say in general, I did think companies usually, this is a crude breakdown, but they tend to focus on one of three aspects to promote themselves. It's either cult of personality of the owner. You think of some companies, you immediately think of the owner. The company's named after the owner. They're on all the posters. That person's charisma, personality is a huge part of what makes the company identifiable, unique, special. And then there's other companies where it's more lifestyle based. I always use the example, who owns Davidoff? The average consumer has no idea. But immediately when you think of Davidoff, you think of luxury, you think of high end, you think of the guy in the suit with the watch. It's more lifestyle connected, right? And then you have product-based companies where there's something about the product itself that people really latch onto. Probably Padron is a great example of that. La Flor Dominicana, Homo Ligero, strong cigars. So it's one of those things. And so with our company, Eduardo is not an outgoing in that way. So it wasn't going to be cult of personality. Lifestyle. I mean, I dress like I work at, as a used BMW salesman or something. So I don't think that that's a lifestyle anybody's going for, khakis and polo shirts. So it was really the Leaf. Our Leaf was the reason people came to us to buy tobacco. The reason people came to us to make cigars. The reason people wanted to deal with us was because of that unique quality that the tobacco has through the seed varietals that we use and the processes that we use to cultivate, cure, ferment, harvest, blend it. And so that right in the beginning was clear that had to become the focus, and changing to Aganorsa Leaf was going to be the focus. But on more of the details and more of some of the other finer points and things, we reached out to our retail partners, to the reps, and we're really like, okay, guys, how can we do it better? What's better? What can we do better? And some things you don't even think of, like minor things, like retailers complained there were no barcodes, on the product, and you'd think that doesn't sound like a sexy thing, but like when a retailer has to open a cabinet of 50 cigars and then individually put on his own barcode onto all of them, that's a time out of his day that he's losing out on, and he finds it annoying. I mean, so we made those type of changes. We made changes in terms of the packaging. We made changes in terms of how we sell. All these different things. All that came more from listening to the reps who are on the streets, listening to our retail partners, and listening to our retail partners themselves and tell us their feedback. And then again, you can't do what everyone wants, but you start seeing trends. So you start hearing the same sort of comment over and over and over again, and then you kind of get a good sense of like, okay, this is where we're strong, and this is where we need improvement, and this is where we need to focus on. And so that was there was those two-part process. I'd say in the beginning, we definitely the general concept of where we needed to go was clear, but how we got there specifically was a lot of feedback.
And I think one cannot underestimate how important those aspects are in building the brand and building the business, because you can have the best product in the world, A, if nobody knows about it, and then B, if all the mechanics and the logistics and the way you treat your partners, the way you work with retailers and approach the end consumer, of course, if that's not properly executed, it's hard to succeed.
That's the most important thing, quite frankly. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, the best cigar you've never heard of is one you don't smoke, and if you can't get it to stores in a timely fashion, you can't sell from an empty wagon. And so those two parts, if you don't have that, it doesn't matter how good your cigars are. Quite frankly, it doesn't make any difference. You need to have those areas in place so that they can enjoy your product. And it's a really hard thing. I mean, when we have private labels, and sometimes we'll deal with somebody who's newer to the industry or is a consumer, or even really loves cigars and has a good knowledge of cigars, but their plan is almost always like, I'm going to create this blend, and then people are going to smoke it and they're going to love it, and then they're going to buy it, and then the retailer is going to buy it, and he's going to put it in his store, and the consumers are going to buy it, and that happens very, very rarely. It's this whole process. I mean, one thing we learned from COVID, one of the reasons you see as we say, the Aganorsa Flex, the arm is on everything now, or if it's not, it will be soon, is that during COVID, like, you couldn't go into a lot of retail stores, obviously, but they could deliver to the door. And so a customer would call up a retailer and say, hey, can I have that cigar I always smoke? I'd like a box. Oh, which one? I don't know. It's on the left-hand side of the humidor, about 2 rows up. Well, you don't know the name? Or do you know the size? I don't know. It's like 6 or 7 inches long. It's got a red band, I think. They smoke this thing all day long, and they don't even know the name of it, the size of it, or anything. So how is somebody that doesn't know your product going to end up within their hand if they can't even tell you the name of the cigar they're smoking? So you have to really be very thoughtful of how the cigar ends up in somebody's hand. And if you don't have a good answer to that, you're gonna have a problem.
Very good point. Terence, you spoke about tobacco knowledge and cigar knowledge. I'm curious, how has the shift from Quesada to Aganorsa, from the Dominican to Nicaragua, from being more heavily involved with all various steps of the business changed your perception, your feeling, but also, of course, your experience and your knowledge about the tobaccos in particular?
So I would say in general, when I was at Quesada, I always kind of use this analogy. Quesada was kind of more like a traditional bar. You walk into a bar and you want vodka, you want gin, you want rum, like they got something for everybody. And Quesada was really like that. They had their brands made in Dominican Republic, but utilizing tobaccos from all different places throughout the world. And then we also we had the brand Casa Magna, which was made with Plasencia, which was your Nicaraguan Puro. We had Casa Magna made on Honduras. And so we could really, whoever came to us, we had a cigar for them. And there's advantages to that, obviously, because every customer, there's something that they're probably going to like. Different factories, different countries of origin, everything. With Aganorsa, it's more of a Scotch bar, where there's all sorts of different Scotch, right? I mean, there's peated cask, non-peated cask, there's sherry, there's all sorts of different expressions of Scotch. But if I have a bottle of Scotch and you like Scotch, and I say, hey, would you like to try the Scotch? You know what you're getting into. You know it's going to taste a certain way. It's not going to taste like rum. It's not going to taste like vodka. It's going to taste like Scotch. And so Aganorsa is more like that. We have tons of different expressions of our tobacco, but it's always Aganorsa. Because almost all the tobacco we use, with few exceptions, is our own proprietary tobacco. And the advantage to that, the disadvantage is that we don't have a cigar for everybody. But if you like our flavor profile, we're the place to go. And so you kind of create a more intense community for your product, because they know that if they like that, they've got to come to us. Also, if a new cigar comes out, they're going to take more of a chance on it, because they know what Aganorsa tastes like. And so that's the advantage over here.
How would you describe in a few simple words, and I know we can barely do it justice in such a format, but how would you describe some of the unique characteristics when it comes to the Criollo and the Corojo that you feature in your Aganorsa Leaf cigars, and also the stuff that you make for other people?
Sure. So Corojo 99 is not really grown in Nicaragua almost at all, other than us, and we're the only ones that grow it on a commercial level. And that's because its yield is low. We grow it for flavor and aroma. And people, every time I say that, somebody says, well, why else would you grow the tobacco? It's like, well, it's a business. The tomatoes at the grocery store are not there because they were the most flavorful. They're there because they don't bruise too easy or don't ripen too fast. There's other factors other than simple flavor of the product, whether it's food or cigars. But because we love the flavor so much, we grow it nevertheless. And Corojo 99, specifically from Jalapa, it makes you salivate. Some tobaccos will dry your palate. Ours makes you salivate. It's got spice to it, especially through the retrohale. Not an aggressive spice, but a nuanced spice. You get, like, even on the tip of the tongue, you get a tingle. It's got sweetness to it. And then Criollo 98, which is really not special to us, quite frankly. Criollo 98 is common and really grown in Nicaragua. A lot of people grow it, but Criollo 98 from Esteli has that earthy, barnyard grit to it, and you'll get some salt on the roof of your palate when you rub your tongue against it. And really, Aganorsa is the synthesis of those two seed varietals together. Also, our fermentation processes. It's not just the seeds and where we grow them. It's also we do a slow fermentation that uses very little water. That it's the whole, the seeds we grow, where we grow it, and the processes that create that unique flavor. Because, for instance, like, some people will buy our tobacco from us, but they'll ferment it in a different way, or they'll finish it for the fermentation in a different way, or how they'll blend it with tobaccos that we don't use, and that'll create another flavor profile, which can be excellent, but it just will be further removed from what you would expect from us. And so that's really the Aganorsa signature taste, is those two seed varietals and the synthesis between them, how they balance and complement each other, and they really impact the whole palate.
What's fascinating is how many different variables you have in the whole equation of getting to a final result that's smokable, let alone enjoyable, by a wider audience. And when you say, well, you primarily work with two particular seed varietals and obviously different hybrids of that, but it's the seed varietal, but you have different plots of land that you work with. You have different soil conditions. You have different terroirs, microclimates. The way you treat the tobacco, of course, is also different. So with all these intricacies and the whole complexity of these variables, where do you usually start in order not to get lost in the process? Because if you really start to think about it, even though it might, let's say for argument's sake, it's only 2 different seed varietals,
Sure.
but then you grow it in 8 different plots of land, you work it differently, you take it a bit further in the fermentation, or give it a bit of a shorter span there aging. Where do you start?
Yeah, and by the way, even in Jalapa, even farms are broken down into lots. So you'll have lot 7, which could be different than lot 3, and so to your point, it can get even more complex. I mean, I leave that more to the professionals. Talking before about like knowing your role. I've spent a lot of time in farms and things like that, more than the average bear. But I'm not a farmer, and I am not somebody that could speak about some of these aspects as well as they could. I kind of leave that to the professionals. My role more, and when we do blends, is looking to where we have gaps in our portfolio. I think a common theme in the cigar industry, which again sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, is they like a blend, and they say, let's make this. And there's not really any thought to like, okay, well, where does that fit into our portfolio? I mean, if you have 7 cigars that are milder and sweeter and smooth, and this is number 8, I mean, is that the right cigar to come out with? You know, or if you're coming out with a cigar called Simtex, and it's mild, that's probably not going to work because the project doesn't fit the blend. And so I'm more on that side of things where I'll say, listen, we'd like to. We don't have this in the portfolio. We're missing this. Let's do something like this. And we need something that has spice, and it needs to be medium bodied, and it needs to, and whatever other qualifications. And that narrows it down a lot. So then you start limiting, okay, well, we can't use this farm because the tobacco there is going to be like this. And we need something to be more like that. And so that helps a lot when you're doing it that way, is that you know where you want to go. And then finding, especially with our guys who know, they know where to go to get that taste. So they'll go, okay, well, we need it like that. So we go here, we go there, we go. Otherwise, and people do it both ways. It's quite, they just sit around and play with tobaccos, and then eventually you come up with something you like and go, oh, this is good. Let's come out with this, But for me, I like it to be a little bit more precise in terms of like, okay, why are we doing this? What are we making this for?
And just to take one example, Terence, one of the people you're working with and have been working with for so many years is Dion, and he described here on the show and on multiple others how usually it's a particular type of tobacco that triggers him when he comes to the factory. He smokes pure grade, and there's this one bale that kind of fascinates him, and it's that light bulb moment where he starts to work around that, right? And then there's the situation that you described where probably somebody just comes in with an idea and say like, let's recreate this, but slightly differently.
Yeah, sure.
Or sometimes people might come up with a fluffy marketing concept, packaging, or a name, and then you try to make the product work along those lines.
Yeah, to your point. So there's 3 types of people you deal with on the creating a cigar for them side, and one is Dion, which is great to deal with because Dion goes down there, like you said, he smokes through bales, he finds the tobacco, he does it basically on his own. He might ask some of our guys down there a question about things, but like in general, he's really creating a blend, and he builds it, like you said, he finds the tobacco he loves and he builds the blend around it and does it that way. And that's great because he's basically doing it all on his own. And then you have guys, and there's nothing wrong with this either, quite frankly, that go, listen, I don't know that much about blending cigars, but I'd really like to have a cigar that's like this. And they'll tell you exactly what it's like, and they'll tell you the flavor profile that they're looking for. And you give them A, B, and C, and they like C, or they say C with a little bit more spice, and then you make D, E, and F, and eventually they pick something out, which is fine too, because the issue with that is that they know that they can't go down there and find the right tobaccos, and so they're relying on us to do that for them. They know what they like. And then you have kind of in the middle where some guys are kind of in between there, and they'll start saying things like, well, listen, I need something with hints of cinnamon and a finish of licorice, and it's not that they're not being genuine, but like it's hard to go to everyone has their own palate, and what tastes like one thing to you might taste like something else to another. And so, it gets harder to deal with those type of people, or they like a tobacco. They like the idea of a tobacco. They'll say like, oh, well, I really want this blend to have like mata fina in it or something like that, which we don't use, but they'll pick out some tobacco that like they've had a cigar with it that they like. And that's what they want to somehow have in the blend or something. And it's harder to deal with that because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know enough just to get kind of themselves in trouble. And it's harder to kind of work with somebody like that. So there's all different ways to do it. And I've seen everything work, but it's certainly easier if the person really, really knows, or the person knows that that's not their really role and that they just want something that they're really going to enjoy and feel confident to go to market with.
On a side note, have you ever run into a situation where somebody came to Aganorsa Leaf and had an idea in mind, but you just knew it wasn't going to work, or Aganorsa is probably not the right place for them to start because they have something completely different in mind of what you could supply in terms of the raw materials, and then turn that customer away?
All the time. I mean, to be honest with you, the first thing I try to do now, if I'm dealing like if some person industry that makes cigars comes to us and says we'd like to do something, you don't have to give them the spiel about like the difficulties of cigar business. But for some people that are certainly trying to get into the business or something like that, I try to talk them out of it. I go, the odds of you being successful with the resources you have are very low. And you think you're going to come in here and blend a cigar and everybody's going to love it, and it just doesn't work that way. And it's very difficult, and you're just not going to be able to do things that way. And if they still want to do it, then we'll do it as long as they can fulfill the criteria of what we would ask for. But at least they can't say I didn't give them a warning. And then other times I will literally say, listen, we're not right for you. And I'll even recommend people. I'll say, hey, try this guy, or try that guy, or I know that these people are looking to make cigars or something like that. Because it's a long-term game. Making some cigars for some person and it doesn't work out is a waste of everybody's time. You want them to thrive, you want them to be successful, and then you want it to be good, reflective of your company. If everyone you make cigars for ends up going under, that's not really reflective of us. So we really look towards our relationships as proof of that we're a great partner to work with if it's the right situation. And we have some of the hottest brands out there making cigars with us, as proof of that.
Yeah, very good point. Over to our brother in Charlotte with a great question for you, Terence.
Damon. I don't see the question.
I think he's just trying to unmute. So
okay.
We'll get there in a second.
There you go.
No worries.
There we go. Okay,
there
there
you
you
go.
go. I'm trying to unmute myself. My guy, Terence, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on, brother?
Man, I couldn't miss the opportunity to come over here and support you, man. So congratulations on being there. I love you to death.
Thank you.
And hello, Reinhard, and hello, everyone else who's here. Hey, man.
Good to see you, Damien. Always a
I
pleasure.
had a bit of a nerdy question for you, Terence.
Sure.
So you talk about, Corojo and Criollo, but between seed varietals, soil type and nutrients, microclimate, curing, fermenting, and aging, if you had to pick one of these things that you said is the biggest thing that contributes to the signature Aganorsa flavor, which would you say it is?
It's really, again, I'm dodging the question. It's really all of them. It's really the whole process. If I had to pick, no, I can't really pick. I mean, so certainly, definitely in the sense of Corojo 99, that's a huge part of what creates that flavor. Fermentation, I'll tell you, how you do that, totally, you take the two, it's like steak, you take two pieces of meat, one you cook well done and one you cook medium rare, and you have a totally different flavor, experience, texture, everything. Same thing with tobacco. The farms you grow it in, there are areas of Nicaragua where you could plant the best seeds and have the best agronomists trying to cultivate it, and you get anything out of it. So it's really the combination. I mean, what's very unfair and difficult about cigars is that it only takes one thing to screw everything up. I mean, you can do everything right, and one of these factors is off, and it's not good. So the best seeds, the best land, you cure wrong, you ferment wrong, ruined. Bad tobacco grown on on areas that aren't, right for growing, doesn't matter how you cure it or ferment it, it's not going to come out right. Even the cigar itself, have you ever had a cigar, you take the band off and it rips the wrapper? You go, bad cigar. You're going to say, well, everybody did their job just perfectly right here. And this one person just put a little bit too much glue on the wrapper. It's still a great cigar. You go, no, it's bad. These aren't good. And that's not you specifically, but people say that. And so that's the real challenge of cigars, is that you have to create something that is so dependent on so many factors to produce excellence. And any of them going wrong ruins it to varying degrees. It's a tough job.
Okay, fair enough. Appreciate you, buddy.
My pleasure.
Many thanks for the question, Damien. Greatly appreciated. Terence, I wanted to briefly go back to the whole rebranding topic. And I'm not a big fan of the word rebranding per se, because it has a weird connotation and might have a little bit of a negative emotion tied to it. But that's also part of my question. Like, sometimes people, have mixed feelings about changing the name of the brand, changing some of the lines, even the packaging. I mean, Dion is also a great example where the original documents were beloved by so many people, but then he made the bold decision to change the design and the packaging ever so slightly to fit more with what he considers the expectations of the modern market. How did you go about that, and how do you feel, how open do you have to be to that idea of taking things, turning them 180 and changing everything completely to give it a fresh start and make it relevant again for today's market?
Yeah, I mean, you have to do it with what works, and whatever you do, somebody's not going to like it. I mean, to this day, I'll still have people say, "Oh, I love the old Casa Fernandez. They were more classic looking," or whatever it is. But the bottom line is that you have to look at, okay, what's going to be most successful, and you talk to a lot of people who know what they're talking about, because everybody has an opinion. If you ask me, but should I invest in Bitcoin? I mean, I might give you an answer, but I'm not qualified to give you an opinion. You're asking somebody who's unqualified. So you want to ask people that know what they're talking about and have experience and success in the particular area you're inquiring into, and then try to make the best decisions that will have the biggest impact and the most appeal. So when I say we rebranded, it was totally necessary. It overall had a massive impact. And that's really how we have to look at it. It's like, are we selling more cigars? The more people know of us now, is the brand growing in popularity? Does the brand resonate more with people now? And if the overall answer is yes, and I would say it's a resounding yes in our case, that's what we have to look at. Everyone's not going to be happy. I mean, yeah, there's and I'm sure with, again, I don't want to speak for Dion, but I can tell you right now, that it's easier for a new customer that walks into a humidor. His new packaging is eye-catching. It's easy. The sizes are on there. It's easier to understand. I mean, one of the things that I talk about a lot is you have to assume nobody's going to do anything to help sell your brand. Now, we try to do things so that people will do that, but you have to take the position of, this guy's going to walk in a humidor with all sorts of cigars in there, and he's somehow going to come out with yours if he's never heard of it. How does that possibly happen? And it's very hard to do that. The more esoteric, the more hard it is to understand the product, the more unlikely that is. If the size is, it's not called a Toro, it's called some weird name or something like that, or an unusual name, eclectic name. They don't know what that means. If the brand doesn't relate to them in some way, if they don't understand what they're trying to say about it, people will not buy something that they don't connect with. And so you have to really be cognizant of that when you're designing packaging, when you're designing names, when you're coming out with logos and slogans and everything else. I always use this example. The greatest cigar anybody's ever had, if you put a Joe Biden or a Trump band on it, they like it more or less. They don't like it the same. Now, it's the same cigar. It tastes exactly the same. But they either won't buy it at all or they'll buy more. And why? Because they relate more or less to it. And, that's kind of a silly example. But the point is that that stuff is all important. And to dismiss it is some sort of like, chicanery where they're tricking people into, it's not. It's that person needs to understand your brand. Nobody's telling them. How are they going to get it? They got to look at that and go, okay, it's got the armor. Leaf is our strength. Okay, it says Connecticut wrapper. It says Toro. Oh, I like Connecticut. I mean, that makes it much easier for them to decide, oh, I'll probably like this. This is something that, or be excited about it even. The more and it also depends how big you want to be. If you want to have a very small brand, and I'm sure Dion wants to grow as much as the next guy out there. You want to grow your business. You've got to be able to appeal beyond the crowd of people who spend all their time reading up on new cigars and studying new cigars and everything else. And that's a segment of the market that's super important, and we love them because it's what's passionate about cigars, and it's a real benefit to have that group. But that's not how the business lives overall. It lives on the average guy that walks in that humidor and grabs something that he thinks he'll like. And so you have to be really open-minded in terms of listening to people and understanding how things are perceived, and not everyone perceives things the way you perceive them. So you got to make sure that however you're looking at it is also looked at it by the market that way.
So directly linked to that, how do you go about structuring the portfolio of Aganorsa Leaf, where you have a comprehensive selection, you have something to offer for various different palates, but still stay true and honest to who you are and to the brand's DNA? Is it something that you decide based on niches and holes you want to fill in the market, where you think, well, this might be missing in our portfolio, let's work towards that? Or how does that work behind the scenes for Aganorsa Leaf in terms of building that range?
Yeah, so it's kind of like to some degree like a director, in the sense of like a director can make a comedy, he can make a drama, he can make a horror movie or whatever else. But it's always that director, that director kind of had his imprint on the film, like a Scorsese film or a Kubrick film or whoever. You kind of can tell who made the film, Wes Anderson or whoever it is. And so there's always kind of that impact of that director on the film. And so all our blends have that signature flavor. In terms of the cigars themselves, the process we use is the same for all. The tobaccos we use, now again, different grades, different styles, but always, we don't have anything where we go, okay, well, that's the stuff that, we don't care about or anything like that. And then you have to figure out, okay, how do I appeal to different people in the marketplace? And so we have our JFR and Lunatic lines that have big ring gauges, which is an aspect of the market. So we want to make the best cigar for that smoker. And when I joined the company, I was like, who smokes these things now, 8x80 in these crazy sizes? And then I saw how many people bought them, and then I smoked them. And again, it's not about me. I'm not an 8x80 guy. I'm not a big ring gauge guy, but I would smoke the blends. They were so well blended. In some cases, our big ring gauge blends, I think, are the most flavorful in the line. So I'd rather smoke for flavor the 70 over the 52 or the 48 or something like that. So you're appealing to that type of customer with those lines. And then you have like our Guardian of the Farm line, which started off as a collaboration with Warped, which is more boutique. And the sizes are smaller for the most part for a more boutique smoker. And we'll use, for instance, our Guardian of the Farm Cerberus uses a new tobacco we've been utilizing called Corojo 2012, which that type of consumer is more interested in what the wrapper of the cigar is, whereas the JFR guy just wants a good cigar in the size that he wants it in, and doesn't care what those tobacco seeds are or anything else. So it's just taking the customer in mind and taking our tobacco and presenting it into them in a way that will appeal to them. And that's really the process is finding, okay, for this type of person, it's going to have these aspects for them to be interested in or to appreciate it. So let's make sure this cigar has those aspects. And then these cigars have other aspects that other people appeal to. That's really kind of how we approach it.
Beautiful. Brian, over to hopefully sunny California.
Hey, it's overcast. We're okay. It's good. It's a perfect temperature.
It's always sunny when you're sporting such a beautiful hat, man.
Hey, $10 on Amazon. Yeah, I thought if Ian was here, definitely.
Brian,
I'm classy. I'm the cigar that's branded for lifestyle. When you buy my brand, you think cheap hats. Yeah, so I have a compliment and I have a question. Thank you, and this is right on topic with what you were just talking about, for looking to brand with the customer in mind in terms of not confusing the hell out of us. I talk about this frequently. I go into the humidor and like Jose Blanco says, we don't name names. There's some big name super successful, amazingly great brands out there, and I'm trying to figure out. I want to buy a little bit of everything, and I cannot figure it out. I'm like, this all looks the same. I have no idea what's going on. So I like what you've got going on with the different colors. Colors help me. I'm like, this is a different color. This is telling me some information. You tell us what, it's a Maduro. Thank you. Put the damn word there. So like, I'm a fan of my father's, and I was in there shopping, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a secondary band at the foot of every cigar with a different color. Now I know I could just buy one of each of these, and it simplifies everything. It makes so much more sense. So that's a compliment. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It means, I don't know about other people, but it means a lot to me when I look at certain brands and I'm like, I'm just confused. And then as a quick question, because you mentioned it also, just because I had the Cerberus recently, it was really good. The concept for the name and the artwork as well. I'm curious about the artwork and just the whole conceit of the name and what it means and the history and all of like think tank that went into that.
Sure. So to your compliment, thank you. And yeah, like when I joined the company, one thing that we definitely had an issue with is that it was impossible to tell what anything was. I mean, like I had a hard time, and I was like, wait, is this the same brand as that? Or so I was like, that's a problem, because if I'm confused, God knows what they think. So thank you, because we worked with a designer, like a professional person that really understands, like color schemes and how to make a clear, distinct image, and how to make that message stand out and everything like that. And so it's good to hear that made a difference. And in terms of I apologize, the Cerberus. So for the Cerberus, Guardian of the Farm line, as I was saying, is kind of more of the boutique consumer. Warp Cigars, it was originally a partnership with them in the first line. He's obviously got a great boutique following. And the guys that like Guardian tend to be more of the people that crave information about cigars. I accuse myself of this. It's more of the cigar geek than kind of the average consumer. And I use that term lovingly and towards myself as well. And so with the Cerberus, one, I was a classics major, Roman Greek history, which is totally worthless. So I try to get some value out of it by naming things from time to time using Greek history or Roman history or classical mythology. And the cigar has the three varietals. It has Corojo 99 and Criollo 98, which all our cigars have. But the wrapper is Corojo 2012, which is the new varietal. And it's the only cigar we have that uses Corojo 2012 as a wrapper. And so each head stood for one of the tobaccos. And again, it's a dog-themed brand. So Cerberus, which is the mythological hound that guarded the gates of Hades. And then again, so yeah, it was kind of to incorporate all those things. It's three tobaccos, three heads. It's a dog, and I like the classics. So that's kind of how it came about. And the design, again, we used a professional designer to create something that would convey, in an interesting way, the image of the brand.
Yeah, super cool. Awesome. Great answer. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Brian. And back to Damien for a follow-up question. That's very interesting.
So, Terence, you're my personal little marketing guru. So I think this is a great question for you. So there are some companies that are, like, when you look at the different lines of their cigars, they're clearly very focused on the name of the company primarily, and secondly, the name of the individual line of the cigar, whereas there are other companies who are just the opposite. They're heavily focused on the name of the cigar. Like, for instance, you look at, of course, Aganorsa. Look at the rebranding. Everybody can look at Aganorsa cigar and they can tell that's an Aganorsa cigar. But then you look at somebody like Warped, right? If there's certain Warped cigar that if somebody didn't know that was Warped, they couldn't tell it by looking at it, because they seem to be more heavily focused on each name of the cigar. So the question is there an advantage either way in the marketing and selling of a cigar brand?
I think as you grow, you have to make things more easily understandable. And it just depends how big you want to be. I mean, like if you're a small company and you want to make X number of cigars and that's where you're successful at, you don't have to make those types of changes, and you can make it more, every brand kind of have its own image and stand by itself. But I do think as you get bigger, you have to tie it together more, or you just will lose, you will lose a part of the market. They just can't relate the brands together. I kind of have this conversation with Steve Saka sometimes, because Saka, who's done an amazing job by any measure, doesn't really tie the brands together, and he does that intentionally. It's more on the individual one, and he's been very successful. But again, like, how big does he eventually want to be? I would say he may say I'm wrong, but at some point, you have to tie things together if you want to reach a certain level. And if you look at the biggest brands, they almost all do that. They almost all have like a common imagery, whether it's Oliva or Perdomo is a great example, or a lot of those companies that are really have well entrenched into the market. They do that because it becomes easier for the person to recognize. Because again, we get spend so much time talking amongst ourselves. We forget that the average person doesn't know all this stuff. It's all foreign to them. If they know any cigars, it's probably a couple brands and that's it. But again, like Kyle, he's got a couple guys in his office, and so it's he doesn't have a factory, he doesn't have farms, he doesn't need to make as many cigars necessarily as we do to be very successful. And to be honest with you, I envy it. If I was to have my own company, that's all I'd want to do. I'd want to like create a brand and have it be special in every way, and have it come out, and then do another one and have that one be special and really be creative with that. And if you look at the Warp's packaging, it's beautiful. Each one has its own unique, distinctive look. I think that's a lot of fun. And depending, on what your end goals are, totally, capable of being successful. But as you get higher, and again, probably Illusion would be a great example. He eventually changed the looks of things. And why? To appeal to a larger variety of the market.
That makes perfect sense, because I was sitting there thinking about, some of those, brands that we did mention, like you look at Rocky Patel, you look at Padron, Fuentes, Aganorsas, they're very brand focused on each cigar, even though you can tell that there's a difference between each line. It's very heavily focused on the brand first. And, whereas, look, the Warp and Illusiones before, it was more heavily focused on the line. So yeah, that was good. Appreciate that, Terence. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Wonderful questions. Many thanks for chiming in there. Keep them coming. If anybody has a question here in the audience or people over on Facebook, we're always checking, and I would love to share your questions with Terence here. There was one interesting question, Terence, from Svetlana over on Facebook, and she was curious, when it comes to the fermentation, how do you know, or I guess rather estimate and project what flavors, what aromas, which taste profile you will get out of certain fermentation processes and certain types of tobacco, and how do you build that experience and the projection when you work the tobaccos, and when you can start to understand how could it possibly contribute to a blend, how could it possibly further down the road, show up in a unique way in XYZ cigar in your portfolio?
The simple answer is smoke. So these guys are smoking all the time. They smoke it out of the pilon. They smoke it, and it's the old expression, trust but verify. So sure, you want to, because they've done this for so long, a certain seed grown in a certain field, depending on the weather, more or less, fermented a certain way will produce a certain taste, more or less. So they know generally if they do it a certain way, how it'll end up. But due to various factors that can are unexpected or unrelated, whatever it's weather, whether it's people, labor, whatever it is, you have to make sure that it comes out the way that you're expecting it to. So they're smoking in the pilons, they're smoking it when it comes out of the pilon. They're smoking it and seeing where it is. And just from time of doing this, they've done it for so long, they'll pull out a Viso out of a pilon, they'll light it up and smoke it, be like, okay, this probably needs, this is on track for what we thought, and it's going to be good for the type of blends that we're looking for this tobacco to be used for. and that's more or less how they do it. It's not really, I'd say, scientific. It's more of an art. And they have the experience and the knowledge and the willingness to smoke a lot to be constantly on top of it to ensure that they ultimately get what they're looking for. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and then you have to use it for something else. But like they'll usually see that coming by staying on top of the process.
Beautiful. Now, on a more holistic level, and looking at the industry from a META perspective, we were just in Dortmund for the Intertabac trade show. Obviously, there's very interesting dynamics going on both in the US market and also the international markets with, at least the way I see it, very different dynamics and very different fuel in how the whole thing evolves. What's your perspective on the evolution of both the US and the international markets? And just to give a little bit of context, before we went live on the show, the Cigar Aficionado released an article with the latest imports numbers into the US, showing again a slight downward trend so far for the year 2023 compared to 2022. And I think we all agreed that there seems to be a certain plateau that we have hit in terms of importation and sales numbers in the US. In the international markets, there's the whole situation with the lack of availability of Cuban cigars, opening up a tremendous opportunity for a lot of the brands that were more heavily focused on the US markets. So what's your take on all of this, and how do you feel about the current health status of the cigar industry on large?
Well, the U.S. market has to be put in perspective in the sense of that. With COVID, people had money from the government, which they couldn't spend on anything except alcohol and cigars, and they could work from home or whatever. That environment is totally an outlier. I mean, you cannot expect that environment all the time. There's a shop in Philadelphia who just by luck had an old tobacco license, which allowed them to also sell water and snacks and things, and made them essential business because they could sell some food product. And so they were able to stay open during COVID. And, again, there was restrictions and things, but people could go in the store. It was like the only store in a 60-mile radius you could actually walk into and buy something. And he just did fantastic. And then the next year I see him and I'm like, how's business? He's like, well, it's just not like it was last year. It's like, yeah, well, eventually other stores are going to be open and you're not going to be the only store in town. So the environment was so good during COVID. I think that kind of skews things. The environment in the US is still excellent. It's an excellent market. It's just returning more of it to a normal environment where people have to buy their kids' school clothes or go on vacation or go to a dinner. They have to go back to an office. And the opportunity and the amount of disposable income they have isn't what it was during COVID. But it's still a great market. We just have to kind of go back to work where for a couple of years, you didn't have to do too much to sell cigars. On the international side, on the non-Cuban side, there's, I think, a huge opportunity. Cuban cigars just seem to, nobody can get them, and if you can get them, they've raised prices like 40% in a couple of years or whatever. And also the economic conditions in the whole world are, inflation and cost of goods and everything else has made it more open to non-Cuban. And we saw that a little bit in Canada. I remember in 2008, after the economic crisis, Canadian humidors used to be like, 75% Cubans, 25% non-Cubans. And now most humidors up there are more than 50% non-Cuban, if not nearly all. And so that Europe, I think, is the opportunity is the same thing. When you can't get a Cuban cigar, or if you can, and it's a lot more money and you have less money, trying something that you might not have otherwise tried becomes more viable. And so, especially if you have a store. I mean, if you have a store, you have to sell cigars. And if you don't have it, I was in the duty free in Madrid. It was probably 60% empty. And of the 60% that was there, I would say 75% was non-Cuban. So, and this is in a duty free in Spain, which is one of the most traditional markets for cigars in the world. So, on the international side, I think that the sky is the limit because it's been so dominated by Cuban cigars, and just either by an openness to trying non-Cuban, or a lack of opportunity to try anything else is really creating a lot of opportunity.
For you and Aganorsa Leaf, what does that mean in terms of the mid to long-term strategy, both in terms of probably ramping up production, but then also allocating your production to the US market versus the internationals?
Yeah, so that's a very difficult thing, and that's something we're working on. We brought in Fabian Ziegler, amazing guy. We worked at Drew Estate for almost 20 years, did international business for them, and he'll be spearheading that because it is difficult. Not only increasing cigars, because it's Nicaragua. I can't speak to Dominican or Honduras or other countries as well, but Nicaragua, Esteli, Nicaragua has zero unemployment. If you're not working, it's because you don't want to. Every cigar factory needs rollers, needs people in the fields, it needs any conceivable job. They need more people, and so you really have finite production levels right now because there's not enough labor. A lot of labor has left the country, and the labor that's there, everybody needs more of. And so, in the long-term sense, is where we see the international market, where we want to be in these markets. We want to have presence there. We want to grow in these markets. And if it were short-term only, we wouldn't do that because short-term, it's much easier to ship cigars to the United States. There's all sorts of health warnings and regulations and filings and bureaucracy you have to do for international business. And that takes more time, and it takes more time. That's less cigars that you could potentially be sending. But because it's important to us, and I think in the long term, crucial to long-term growth, we're going to really need to be very intelligent about not taking too much away from the U.S. market necessarily, but at the same time making sure that our international partners are supplied on a consistent basis.
When I was in Dortmund, I spoke with a tobacco growing family, and they said what a lot of people probably do not have on their radar currently is how the prices will increase, and they will have to increase quite drastically for raw materials, labor, obviously, but just in general, that we're reaching another segment, and we're taking one step up in terms of the overall price floor that's going to be built underneath the industry. And one of the reasons for that, as to that family, was that during the pandemic, obviously the production or the handling of raw materials was way more difficult because people were forced to stay at home, of course, all the social distancing and stuff. And it's only now that we're seeing these ripple effects coming more to the forefront. So my question is, do you see the same with Aganorsa, and what's your projection and what's your thoughts as to the evolution of the prices over the next few years?
Prices are going up. I mean, across the board. I'm saying industry. It's, there's no question about it. It's harder to get people. Materials cost more. And that's everywhere. It's hard to get people in the United States. It's hard to get people in Europe. But in Dortmund, I talked to many retailers who said it's hard to get people that want to work. And so you have to pay more to get those people. And then labor pool, depending on the industry, how many people are willing to do these type of jobs. One guy pays more, and they go from you to the next guy, and so you don't have employees that you can count on for long periods of time. So there's no question. Stock up on your cigars. Pricing is going up. Also, another thing is economic problems. Ecuador has a kind of a funny situation down there with their political situation. I know the crop this year was difficult, and so there's fewer and fewer places left to grow quality tobacco well, where you have you have the land, you have the infrastructure, you have the knowledge, you have the labor, and demand overall. Again, even with the U.S. market dropping a little bit, post COVID, it's still massive, and the international market is growing, and so you're gonna see pricing increase due to that.
So in particular, when it comes to the raw materials and the supply of tobacco, do you see any writings on the wall or troubles further down the road at the moment where you're worried about how to keep up with the current demand? Or do you think that the industry will just have to probably also explore new territories and see how that footprint could be enlarged in order to keep up with that demand.
Yeah, in this industry, everything's great until it's not. So things change all the time. I don't ever get too far ahead of myself in this business. I try to take a look at the foreseeable future and deal with those situations. It just changes as so often in this business. There's a revolution in this country and you can't get tobacco from there anymore, or this happens, or a new law comes into place in a country, or whatever it is. So these things tend to happen suddenly, and so it's kind of like black swan. You don't know what you don't know. So I can say that definitely in the near future, you're looking at an increase in pricing. How that will be handled is hard to say in the long term. Whether that will be a short-term thing. Economic conditions could change and there might be less demand, and then that would bring prices down, or there might be new technologies are being used every day to improve efficiency that might counteract it. It's really hard to say. I try to focus on the little I can control and do that well, and everything else I can't handle.
I'm with you. Great point. On a more personal level, Terence, what are some of the things that you would love to accomplish, or you're working on, or you're thinking about probably, that you think would take Aganorsa even one step further and help build the brand and continue that beautiful and very positive trajectory that you're on?
I think investing in team, investing in more people, investing in, we just brought Fabian on, and I'm so excited about that. Again, when you start small, you can handle more things. And so as time goes on, all those things have more problems and have more intricacy to them, and to be successful, I always like say cooking. It's like, if you can cook for 5 people, doesn't mean you can cook for 50. That's a whole different thing. And you need more help, and you need different equipment, and you need to be able to do things, to scale up in order to do that. And it's the same thing for us. So bringing on great people, which we continue to do, investing in, infrastructure in our marketing and things like that. Those are all crucial things. It's really taking the money and putting it back into other people and resources, so that we can create that same experience that we're creating for the people we are now on a larger level.
Excellent. Terence, what a joy and what a privilege. We see that the lounge behind you is busy, and there's probably quite a few people who also would love to talk to you there. So we want to be respectful of your time, obviously, but maybe you can give us a little tour of the lounge.
Yeah, I was about to say. So this is Tabacon in Doral, Florida. It's a beautiful lounge. They just opened in May. They have a couple other locations, but this is it's one of the nicest lounges you'll see in the United States. It's a beautiful bar. Take over here, lovely bartender here. Say hello. We've got incredible selection of delicious spirits, and really just in a beautiful place. And they're kind enough to let me do my my shows here and videotape here and things. So I always like to give them a little bit of props for allowing me to do that.
Beautiful. Well, many thanks for sharing that with us and taking us on a quick little tour. Thank you so much, Terence. It's been a tremendous privilege and pleasure to spend time with you at the lounge and to share a cigar with you and hear some of your vast experience and your thoughts for the future. It's been an absolute pleasure. We wish you nothing but the very best, continued success. Keep doing what you're doing, because also one thing that I forgot to mention, kudos to you. You were awarded Industry Personality of the Year. I believe it was last year in 2022, right?
Person of the Year with Cigar Dojo. Yes, thank you.
Rightfully so, and very well deserved. You did an incredible job. You're certainly one of the people who manages and very successfully and gracefully so to build communities and bring people into this whole cigar lifestyle and cult, and that is exactly what the industry needs, and it is greatly appreciated. So many thanks for everything that you do. Keep up the excellent work, and the very best to you, to Eduardo and the whole Aganorsa Leaf team. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Please, if you're ever come to Miami, we'll come to Tabacon here and have a cigar. And anyone listening, like our social media pages, Facebook, Aganorsa Acolytes, Instagram, Aganorsa Leaf. Follow us, give us comments, give us feedback, stay in touch. Like you said, it's about community and we can't do it without you. So thank you so much for having me.
With great pleasure. Thank you very much, Terence Reilly, and to all of you guys. Have a lovely rest of your Wednesday. Light 'em up, and we'll see you all next week here. Thanks everybody for today. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.